We're pleased to be joined now by Tamara Treanore. She is the founding director and special instructor of Orthotist and Prosthetist Assistant Studies at Oakland University. And I am just happy that I landed on 2 feet saying that, as I've messed that up almost every single time. So I'm glad to bring her in and ask the first question, Tamara. What goes into being an orthotist and a prosthetist assistant? What do they do? What is this all about?
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show. This is a great opportunity. An Orthotist Prosthetist Assistant is an individual who assists a clinician, and a clinician is an orthotist or a prosthetist themselves. I'm an orthotist. And an orthotist is somebody who makes braces. So everybody says to me, oh yeah, I have orthotics for my feet. However, an orthosis or a brace can pretty much encompass any segment of the body. It could be for a foot and ankle, such as we have right here. It could be for an upper extremity, hand, spine, scoliosis braces are very common examples of that. It could be pretty much any body segment. Prosthetics are obviously something that's going to replace a limb, so a prosthetic is something that replaces an actual missing limb. People are more familiar with a prosthetic than they are with an orthosis. An assistant is somebody similar to the role of the physical therapy assistant, similar to the role of the physician's assistant. It's somebody who assists in providing additional services, expanding the capabilities of the primary contact person by expanding hands-on care. So the Orthotist Prosthetist Assistant, the OPA, is an individual who's being trained to provide those additional skills and really just permit more patients to be seen in a timely fashion. Currently in the country, we have a shortage of the staff for orthotist and prosthetist positions that are available. And this is the accrediting board and pretty much the field effort to expand services by offering additional ancillary skills, ancillary caregivers.
We're joined by Tamara Treanore. She is the founding director and special instructor of Orthotist and Prosthetist Assistant Studies at Oakland University. And you mentioned the shortage that there is nationwide for assistants in these 2 categories. What are the kind of skills, like the natural skills or learned skills that are sought after by doctors in this industry, by medical companies and outlets in this industry for people to be an orthotist or prosthetist assistant right now to cover those shortages?
Yeah, the entire field is a very niche field. People do not know about a prosthesis or an orthesis. You wouldn't think of needing one unless you had a medical-driven deficit, unless something had happened to you. So individuals who have strokes and they develop weakness, they develop what's called a classic drop foot. People who have amputations, trauma such as that, those are individuals who end up needing these devices. And the device itself, or the interventions that are required, are a combination of some real significant skills. The first thing that has to be done is the physician assesses and sends a patient over to our clinics or offices, such as it could be a freestanding clinic such as Wright Philippus, Hanger, Benson's, Prostech, Mary Freebed. Any of these companies have clinicians on staff, the orthotist or the prosthetist. Rehab Institute, every hospital has an affiliation. The patient who comes in is then assessed by the clinician or in conjunction with the assistant. And the individual is assessed for the deficits or physical needs, what their issues are, what their challenges are, all driven by the prescription. We have a guideline from the physician, and the patient is then assessed and evaluated: walking, movement, muscle strength, range of motion in the various joints, sensation, additional diagnoses that are affecting what's going on. So it's a very thorough, very in-depth diagnosis. So part of the assistant skills are history taking, manual muscle testing, range of motion, evaluation, working one-on-one with patients. Again, they're working under the direction of the orthotist or the prosthetist, but it's also part of their skill sets. Clinical assessments of the patients. After an assessment's done, then we have to be able to move forward into providing what's needed driven by the prescription and by the assessment. And we may end up doing measurements, we may end up doing a scan, and we may end up taking an impression. An impression is something where the patient is wrapped up in layers of fiberglass or plaster Paris in this model of their leg, which I happen to have one right here. the model of this patient's leg, done in fiberglass and casting materials, is then taken and we use a series of, we fill it with plaster Paris. There's a vacuum forming technique. So there's another aspect of the skills required by an orthotist prosthetist assistant. They would be doing impressions. So measuring and scanning skills, casting patients and casting patients and manipulation of the patient to create that outcome you want in this model of the patient's leg. The next part of the skill sets the assistants will need is understanding materials, because these devices are made up of a combination of materials, whether they're plastics or foams, the types of joints, the pneumatics, the actual structural elements of the prosthetic limb. So there's also exposure and understanding of materials. Is it a foam? Is it a metal? Is it what type of plastics are needed? So there's an understanding. It's basically a very material basis with an understanding of the physics of materials and understanding of the characteristics of materials. After those materials are created by a technician into the brace that we need, again, the final outcome will be something like this. But then the assistant will also be working directly with the patient in terms of modifications, adjustments, corrections, follow-up education. And that's another very unique part of the field, because the clinician and the assistant both need hand skills. In my lab behind me, I don't know if you can see it well, but we have jigs, and the jigs are designed to provide alignment for the prosthesis. We have bandsaws, we have drill presses, we have grinders, we have drawers. I'm sitting at a workbench right here, and I have drawers full of tools. And the tools, everything from hand tools to handheld drills, grinders, Dremels. It's a very hands-on, very creative field. And that's one of the best parts of this. With the skill sets, again, that hand skills, ability to learn how to use tools, but also be able to use them. The other part is patient education, contact. You're working one-on-one with a patient. You're working directly with individuals. You could be working with a 2-month-old baby. You could be working with an 87-year-old geriatric patient. You could be working with a patient who's got multiple limb loss, or you could be working with somebody who has a simple instability in one joint. So that's another skill. Communication, ability to talk and listen and educate patients in terms of what they need. This field is a combination of engineering and physical therapy, psychology, physics, it's everything. All sorts of skill sets are brought into play. It's a very niche field, but the people who come into the field have a diverse set of skills, which I don't think you'll ever find in any other field out there.
Yeah, that's kind of what has caught my eye with this. We're joined by Tamara Treanore. She is the founding director and special instructor of the Orthotist and Prothetist Studies at Oakland University. And from my notes, this is the first Bachelor of Science program, or BS program, to be created in the field and working with accredited and nationally recognized accreditation. And so, what went into the decision and to your discussions with the university, and ultimately the decision to make this a Bachelor of Science program? Because like you said, it is such a niche field to go into, but on the other side, as you also said, there are so many different skill sets and there's so much intricacy that also goes in to being an orthotist prosthetist assistant. So
the field itself was, I should say, this program came about as almost an extension from the old orthotic prosthetic technician program up at Baker Flint. And I taught there for quite a few years. That program closed. And in the process, there was a transition where Kevin Ball was working with the president of Baker, and the materials, the equipment were moved to Oakland University with a vision of creating not only the assistant program, but at some point we'd like to attempt to advance into the master's program for the actual clinical program. That's a long-term goal. We're working on the building blocks of this program at this point. The purpose of embedding it in the health science program in terms of the human health building is because in this building alone, we have physical therapy, we have the biomedical engineer, we have the biomedical applications and understanding, we have exercise science. We have a very strong basis of similar skill sets. And we have a very strong group of individuals who are focused and understanding of the unique niche of this field. Physical therapists are an individual, are the an adjunct group that I work with in terms of assessing and seeing patients. A physical therapist may reach out to a clinician and say, I have a patient who presents with these particular symptoms and I need to have them evaluated. So I'll be at the clinic, the patient will be coming to my clinic, and they'll be evaluated, and I'll work with a physical therapist in terms of determining long-term goals, immediate goals, and interventions that we may need to address. So this is a great environment because we have so many of the parallel caregiver and involved parties for where this particular field works.
We're joined by Tamara Treanore. She is the founding director and special instructor of the Orthotist Prosthetist Assistant Studies program at Oakland University. It's currently pursuing national accreditation with the OPA specialization through the Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs and the National Commission on Orthotic and Prosthetic Education, or NCOPE. A site visit is planned for 2021. So while you're pursuing that accreditation, it's expected to have a site visit this year and may be completed soon after that. As you're seeking that accreditation, how are you also working to attract students? Because it's expected that you will more than likely get that accreditation with all the facilities, with all the work and the expertise that's involved in this Bachelor of Science program, but it's still not quite there yet, and this program is still very much in its infancy. So how's it coming along getting students into this program, and what's the interest level been like?
Well, I have literally been on site at OU just for a few weeks, but I've been working with OU in terms of developing this program for approximately 1.5 to 2 years. There's a great amount of support internally from OU. We have different departments who are providing us support. We have our marketing, we have our reach outs. Again, we're focusing right now on just bringing students in and providing them an exposure in terms of what the field is. Again, as I mentioned, it's a niche field, and trying to broadcast this very, very unique field. At this point, we're expanding. We're learning the different areas where we're going to bring students in. We're learning the different people who have the skill sets and the interests. I've had people come through and look at the lab and go, "Oh, no. I don't want to be working in an environment where I have to use tools and where there's more of the hands-on." They'd like there's a different view of what they want out of their job. So we're seeking all sorts of avenues. We're working with social media platforms. We're working internally. We're working with the incoming students in the exercise science student body and providing them exposures, because again, these students already recognize, I want to be in the healthcare industry. I want to be in healthcare. I may not want to be a physician. I may not want to be a nurse. I want to do the hands-on portion. So we're providing exposure to these students, bringing them in for tours, offering them understanding of what the skills are, offering them opportunities to come in and see the lab. I've talked to many students and brought several in already who are interested. The person who works in this field or who's found this field to be most attractive is, again, individuals who have that ability to not only learn and are comfortable with all the different approaches. They're not just in a singular path in terms of how they're involved with patients, but they also recognize the creativity and the design applications and are very interested in expanding the skills that they have and are very comfortable with. It could be somebody who's already a woodworker, somebody who already has family members who've had orthotic or prosthetic interventions and thought it was a cool area, fascinating, but they didn't know how to get into it. It could be somebody who has a family member who has some type of a disability and recognize that it was pretty interesting to them to go into the appointments. And so they're the people we're reaching out to. We're exploring every option at this point because, again, we're the first program in the country that is seeking to establish an accredited program. Accreditation is pretty rigorous. We have multiple standards of education to meet, multiple expectations of students' proficiency, multiple areas that are identified and training the students in. So it's a rigorous program. It's also one that, again, in the infancy stage, we're getting a ton of support from the national level, from our clinical partners, from the supporting industry. We're getting great support. Again, they recognize that any type of build is a challenge. However, we have all the elements. We have the lab, we have the support, we have an environment, we have the educational support. It's a great In fact, I felt I was extremely lucky when I was able to come to OU and work, just because all the elements are present to make a great program.
We're joined by Tamara Treanore. She is the director and instructor of the Orthotist and Prosthetist Assistant Studies, and also the founding director of the program at Oakland University. And Tamara, just another minute with you before we'll say goodbye today. So for those that may be interested in this very niche but very intricate and growing opportunity that's there for them at Oakland University, where can they find more information, inquire about the program, and maybe even sign up to be one of the initial students to get a Bachelor of Science in these studies?
You can definitely reach out to Oakland University, the Health Science Department, Exercise Science. So contacting Oakland University and asking to speak with the Health Science, the Exercise Science program. The academic advisor, academic co-chair is Dr. Dan Goble, G-O-B-L-E. And his email is dgoble@oakland.edu. dgoble@oakland.edu. We also, you can also absolutely reach out to me. Mine is a little bit more complex. It's TTREANORE at oakland.edu. TTREANORE at oakland.edu. However, again, contacting or reaching out to Oakland University, the Health Sciences, Exercise Science program, we definitely have individuals who will be more than happy to speak with anyone whatsoever. And I'm absolutely delighted to give anybody tours, talk to them directly, spend time with them, explaining the field to them. This is an area I've been involved in for 30 years. I love my field. I love it, having the opportunity. How many people say at the end of the day, yep, I helped somebody walk? So it's a great field. It's a great area. Please reach out if you have any interest or know anybody who might be interested. It's a great opportunity.
Well, Tamara, we appreciate your time. Thank you for letting us know about this really interesting program and revolutionary program, really, that's here in our local area at Oakland University, the first of its kind to have a first of its kind as a Bachelor of Science program. Thank you very much.
Thank you now.